It's not uncommon in the Yu-Gi-Oh community for people to come up with custom cards, mechanics, and rules. However, there is one rule that people want to implement in the game, and they think that this rule would quote-unquote fix the game. And that rule is, you can only special summon X amount of monsters per turn. For the sake of this video, let's just say 5 because people say all sorts of numbers. I can't stress to tell you how many YouTube comments, Twitter threads, and Reddit posts I've seen where people genuinely think that limiting the amount of summons in Yu-Gi-Oh would solve the game's problem, and that how oppressive combo decks are. However, I'm going to be brutally honest here, this is the worst idea I've ever heard in my life. It's not even just my opinion, it's just general fact that this rule would cause way more harm than good to the game if Konami implemented this. So in this video, I'm going to point out all the flaws in this quote-unquote solution that people keep suggesting with these 5 points. So without any more intros, let's jump into the video, shall we? The first and most obvious point is that you're going to kill off at least 80% of decks in Yu-Gi-Oh where they need to special summon more than 5 times to do what they are designed to do. Here, let's list some decks that need to do a lot of summoning. We got Adagnister, Marincess, Salamangreat, Live Twins, Synchrons, Infernoble, Dinos, Prank Kids, and freaking Drytrons who do nothing but special summoning. All these decks need to summon more than 5 times so they can go first and do what they have to do, or more importantly, go second so they can deal with whatever end board the opponent already made. And if you restrict their summonings, then these decks would be borderline unplayable. To add on to this, you're also making individual cards unplayable. For example, the new Cosmic Quasar Dragon that's coming out in Duelist Nexus requires at least 1 Tuner Synchro, so that's at least 3 summons, and 2 or more non-tuner Synchros, which at that point you're already past the 5 summon limit, so how do you even summon this card? Another example I'll give is Evil Twins Trouble Sunny. To summon her, you need both the Link 2 Evil Twins, who also work great with a tribute effect, and those two already go past the 5 limit summon. So if you can't summon Sunny, let alone fully utilize her effect, then how is Live Twin supposed to operate without their boss monster? The answer is, they can't. Live Twins desperately needed Sunny as before they weren't all that good, but once Sunny came out, she gave the deck a huge blessing, but if this rule was implemented, then they would lose that blessing. So this already shows one of the biggest problems limiting summonings will do to Yu-Gi-Oh, as many decks and individual cards will become completely useless. Now, one counter argument I was told is that you could try to summon those cards after turn 1. However, my counter argument to that is, with the amount of mass removal, negation, hand traps, and going second cards we have gotten over the years, I don't think that's going to be easy. I mean, there's no way your opponent's going to let you keep the materials out for a turn just to let you summon your boss monster. To me, it's just not possible to summon these boss monsters under this rule set. Anyways, the next point I want to make connects with the first point, as Konami would have to find a way to compensate for these decks as some of them are fan favorites, and if Konami doesn't want to lose that fan base, they somehow have to make their decks work under this new rule set. And the biggest question is, how do you even do that? How can you make a deck that needs to summon more than 5 times work under this rule set without causing additional problems in the process? The answer is, you can't. I saw this guy's comment on Reddit who makes a valid point, that if Konami does go through with this rule, then they would have to release more spells and traps that summon monsters from the extra deck, and that could cause problems in of itself, as Konami would make them generic to get people invested. Then the players would find some very degenerate ways of using those spells and traps where they could end up getting banned in the future. Basically, we would get a power creep version of Magical Scientist, Metamorphosis, Instant Fusion, and Cyberstein, which, I like to remind you, we just rebanned Cyberstein, and you're telling me it's okay to have a power creep version of him? Most people know that's going to end badly for the game. So, to put it in short, Konami can't really compensate these decks to work under this new rule set without creating cards that would cause even bigger problems down the line. It's just not possible for them to do. Now, moving on to the third point I got, is that this rule set doesn't solve anything. What do I mean by that? Well, the biggest reason people want this rule implemented is so that they can curve the power level of these 15 negate boards. However, this rule doesn't fix that. Obviously, control decks like Dinomorphia, Sky Striker, Outlich, and Flu don't care about summoning more than 5 times, and they can make oppressive boards through spells and traps, so they'll become the best decks. I'm not saying this because I hate control decks, I'm just saying that they'll benefit the most from this and people will still complain regardless. Furthermore, this rule kind of makes it so that one disruption can hurt you more than it does now. What I'm trying to say here is that any deck that can work under this rule will basically need one disruption to screw you over, because this rule set basically kills extenders. And if your main play was disrupted, then you're kind of in trouble, because not only did you waste your summon, but you only got 4 left, and if you can't capitalize off those 4, then you're kind of screwed. And I'm not even including what hand traps your opponent will use. One thing people like about Yu-Gi-Oh is that if your play got negated, then extenders can give you a comeback. However, this rule set basically makes it so that you can't extend anymore. Now, with all that said, you might say just negate their one interruption with something like Imperm or any other going second card, and to that I ask, what did you even solve? We're still in this draw the out game state as we are today. Look, the point I'm trying to make here is the same that this Reddit user Black Raisin said, and that the number of summons doesn't make an end board oppressive. Some decks can still make it hard to break board with this rule set, keeping this build a board problem that people are complaining about pretty much unsolved. Furthermore, this rule killed regular decks that probably would have had a fighting chance if they weren't restricted by the number of summons. So really I ask you, what did this rule accomplish? The answer is nothing. Okay, before I move on to the next point, I'll just say real quick, I don't know if I worded that third point right. Basically, that point was inspired by Black Raisin's Reddit post, and I just added in my own thoughts. So if you want a more clear understanding, just read his post, I'll link it in the description. I do think he makes some great points in this discussion. Anyways, we're moving on. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get into my fourth point, and it's that Konami already tried this solution with Master Rule 4. Now, you might say, what are you talking about? The game was way too fast during that time. It didn't slow down. True. But when you look at the way that rule was designed, clearly it was Konami's way of quote-unquote slowing down the game. Master Rule 4 made it so that you can't summon other extra deck monsters unless you have a Link monster, and when you think about it, limiting the number of monsters you can summon from the extra deck can really hurt a lot of decks, just as much as limiting special summons in general, as most combo decks rely on the extra deck. However, we all know that after 3 years, Konami basically reverted back to the old rules, except for pendulums. Why did they do that? It's because the Master Rule 4 solution failed, and some of you might have said Konami did it wrong. They should have limited special summons in general. However, I guarantee you that the same result would have happened and that the player base hated this rule set. Looking back, a majority of players didn't like Master Rule 4 because some decks couldn't adapt with the new rules. This then caused Konami to create so many Link monsters that ended up becoming bigger problems to the point where they're the most banned extra deck mechanic in the game. This kind of relates back to my first 2 points, as they were things that actually happened when Konami tried to restrict summons, and I guarantee you the same thing would happen again, if not worse, if we restrict special summoning in general. To back this point up, I found an article from October 27, 2017, where it says that Yu-Gi-Oh sales in Japan dropped by 52% compared to last year. And remember, this was the beginning of the Link era after we got our second set circuit break. So you can see how much of a negative impact Master Rule 4 did on Konami's sales. And when a company's sales start decreasing, you know they would do everything they can to fix this, which is what led to broken links and eventually changing the rules back. To put this point in short, Konami already tried this solution and it failed badly, and they'll probably never do this again. Now, before I move to my final point, one counter argument I guarantee these people will have to my video is that Yu-Gi-Oh players will just play the new decks that Konami will make that work with this rule set. To them, it doesn't matter if these older decks die, they just think we'll accept the rules and play these new decks. However, that's their biggest misunderstanding of the Yu-Gi-Oh community, as my final point is that this rule goes against Yu-Gi-Oh's identity. I bet you these people are probably laughing thinking who cares, it's just a game, but here's a question I have for them. Why do you think Yu-Gi-Oh is one of the most popular games in the world? Why is it that this game is just as popular as Magic or Pokemon? Well, the reason why is that one of Yu-Gi-Oh's core identities is not being bound by a resource system. People love how in this game, you can do whatever you want. You can get creative and come up with combos never seen before. I mean, look at Jesse Cotton. He found a way to summon the creator of Light with just Tour Guide. He wouldn't be able to do that if he was under a resource system. All of this is what people love about Yu-Gi-Oh! Yes, it's not perfect as we have degenerate combos, but it's fun for people to find new and creative ways to play with these cards. To add to this, I believe Konami knows this, which is why they went down the Link path instead. Basically, they still allowed the players to do what they want, it's just that they had to use Link monsters first. I mean, even in the anime, you have moments that represent this identity, like Yusei summoning shooting Quasar Dragon, Revolver doing an extra link, Astro summoning all Utopias, and more. Moments like these are meant to show that in this game, you can do what you want as long as you got the resources for it, and you can do some crazy things that people probably won't expect. And at the end of the day, this is one of the main things people love about Yu-Gi-Oh! So adding this rule basically takes that identity away, which in turn hurts the game more than benefiting it. Alright, before I end the video, I do want to address where this rule set came from. When did it start, who came up with it, and why do they want it so badly? I've been playing this card game for more than 10 years now, and I've never seen people ask for this before, so what happened? Well, I think I got my answer, and this all started last year when Master Duel came out. I think Master Duel indirectly caused this, as we all know the game brought in lots of people. However, it brought in people that I like to call the unsatisfied players, basically people who don't like modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And you might think I'm gaslighting these people, but no, that's not my intention. I just want to say this to them. I understand modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not everyone's favorite, and I will never shame someone for not liking it. I know how much people miss the old days of Yu-Gi-Oh! However, trying to change the game is going to cause way more harm than good. That's the reason why I made this video, to show that you can't change Yu-Gi-Oh! To how it was before. You're just going to cause way more problems down the road. The harsh reality about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that you either learn to accept it and learn the game so you get familiar with it, or you do what MBT said and join sector of the communities that do old formats, or go find another game to play if Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't making you happy. Again, I'm not trying to be rude here, but I just want to address the people who suggested this kind of rule. Sorry if I offended you, but this is the harsh reality of pretty much any game. If you're not willing to accept it, you might as well leave to find something else that would make you happy. Well, that's all I have to say about this topic. Hopefully the whole thing can stop, but we'll see about that. Anyways, thanks for watching the video, subscribe for more, and have a good day, folks.